Hello everyone and welcome to the Future Programmer YouTube channel. In this video, we will be starting section 3 of the Python Fundamental course, which is one of the most exciting and important part of the series. So without further ado, let's get started. Today's lesson marks the start of chapter 3 of the Python Fundamental series, which is all about functions. And functions is as you can see here, bolded and in italics, a very important concept in programming. Firstly, what really is a function? If you have taken math classes like algebra or an equivalent class, you may already be quite familiar with functions. Take f of x equals to x squared as an example. We can see that we input the value of x inside the function f of x, and here some magic happens. In this case, we square x, and now f of x stores the value of x squared. And in Python, functions are quite similar. You input something, which is optional, and the program will process something, and some actions can happen, which is also optional, and then something will be outputted, which is also optional. And you may wonder, if everything is optional, what's the point of having a function? Well, you won't be writing a function that has none of the input, processing, and output, but not having one of them won't matter a lot. So here is the syntax of Python functions. A Python function's definition starts with the keyword def, standing for define, and after that is going to be the name of the function, and after that is going to be parentheses, a set of parentheses inside which you can pass in the inputs. And even if you don't have any inputs, you still have to have the parentheses like this. And the inputs can be separated by commas like A, B, C, like this. And inside the function, you can have statements, which is the processing and actions and operations happening. And then after that, you can have the optional return statement, returning something from inside the function to the outside. And here's an example of a function. We've defined a function called greetings, and it takes one parameter called name, and inside the function's body we can see it prints out hello and the name and then an exclamation mark. If I run this code cell, you can see 1 is here, so I have run this cell, but nothing happened, because if we want to execute a function, we have to call it. And here's how we call the greetings function. We first write the name and then the parentheses. But if I run this cell, we can see that it generates a error. It generates a type error, greeting function, missing one required positional argument called name. And the reason for that is, when we defined the greetings function, we had one required positional argument, which is called name, and here we didn't pass anything inside. So what we need to do is to pass an input into the greetings function when we call it. In this case, I have passed the string called programmer into the greetings function, and if I run it, you can see hello programmer printed out. Similarly, if we define a function to accept two required arguments, and if we pass in 0, 1, 3, or any other number of arguments when calling the function, then an error will be generated. Earlier, I said that we can output values outside the function, and that is done in Python and many other languages through the return keyword. For example, we can see we have a function definition called by, which takes one argument, name, and we're going to have the local variable. We'll talk about that in a future lesson. A variable which stores the value of goodbye concatenated to the name, as well as an exclamation mark. And at the last line of the function definition, we have the return string. And if I run the cell, the function is now defined, so we can call it. And notice here that instead of just calling the function, we are actually printing the return value of the function. And if I run the cell, you can see goodbye programmer printed out. And the reason for that is, when we called by with the argument programmer, we're passing it in to the by function as name, and a new string variable is created with the value of a string goodbye programmer. And At the last line of the function, we return string. So we return goodbye programmer. So now the bye function holds the value of goodbye programmer. So if we print out the value held by this function call, it's going to be goodbye programmer. And just to summarize the lesson today, we went over the very basics to functions in Python, and now you're equipped officially with one of the most important knowledge in programming. In the future lessons of this chapter, we will continue our exploration with everything that has to do with Python functions. And today we talked about what is a function. We also went over functions in Python as well as function syntax in Python. And there you have it, Python functions, which is arguably the most important part of programming in languages like Python. With what you have learned in this video alone, you have already gained the ability to upgrade your programs to a level above and beyond what you had before. With that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video to continue our exploration on functions.